Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. It is post-NCAA Thursday, alongside my good friends, Mark Ostrander and Grant Turner. This is the one week of the year where you don't need to figure out what we're going to talk about, right, boys?
Yeah.
First of all, Mark, you were missed. I did miss not sitting there and talking to you and doing the interviews and stuff like that. Got to see GT a couple nights. GT especially, thank you for coming by Border Brawl and coming by the fantasy contest and witnessing the greatness that was my draft, the winning team.
Grant, how'd your team do?
The one from the live auction?
Yes.
I think we ended up getting like 6th or 7th or something like that.
They got stuck with money. There's a whole secret to that game. You got to draft early.
Boy.
No, he did. They got stuck with like $300 or $400 or something crazy.
Yeah. Well, there's an aspect of the live auction that is not like the other ones, which is a crazy thing.
It's not just knowing who you think is going to do well. It's getting them at a reasonable price and going early. But anyway, want to thank Christian Thompson. He ran an awesome contest. Thank Willie Saylor for streaming it. Thank Yanni Diakomahalis for coming by. And Cade Brock. GT, how good is Cade Brock as an auctioneer?
Yeah, professional auctioneer. Like, could sell some cattle real quick.
I can't even imitate him. If I try to imitate him, it'd be an insult to what that man does.
His Oklahoma showed through a little bit when pronouncing all of those names, which was hilarious.
Even better.
Even better. He's like, yeah, he had a really struggle with some of those guys, and it was first one up, Greg Kirk, whatever, Penn State guy. Here we go.
Hey, but honestly, with Mark and I having to try to do that aspect of it the last couple of years, he was such an upgrade. And it also made it where I could actually sit and play. So really, really fun. And we should thank Nike because they sponsored the event, provided the gift cards. So GT, thank you to Shane and yourself for being a part of that, or a big part of that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I guess we'll just go to the brackets. I don't really know a better way to do this. So let's get to it. Start at 25. Marco, initial thoughts on 125.
Kind of played out the way we had talked about it. I think they had one number 3 seed make the final 4. The rest of them were 8s, 12s. I mean, just kind of the way the weight has been all year long. But it was good wrestling. I mean, these guys can wrestle. It's just the parity of that weight in the United States, 1 through 20, barely an eyelash difference between them. So it was a fun weight to watch. Figueroa did what I thought he could do early in the year, even though he had some ups and downs. He looked really good at the national tournament, wrestled really smart, scored when he needed to score, did not make any mistakes, and that's how you win a national title.
Besides Figs, did anything else? I mean, this is probably the one weight where we can all honestly say nothing really surprised me. But did like Braden Davis not placing surprise you? Noto making the semis, did that surprise you?
Noto really impressed me. I hadn't seen him wrestle that much, and he did not have, he had a couple losses this year, but didn't really wrestle any of the top guys. So I was impressed by the way he wrestled. Barnett, being a 5th-year senior, going through the wrestlebacks and winning was impressive because we talk about it all the time. Once you lose that chance of winning a national title, a lot of guys put their heads down and don't really care anymore. So it was nice to see him wrestle well. Brayton Davis, he was a freshman, and he had some close matches, some great wins this year. But it doesn't surprise me that he didn't place. I know a few guys picked him to be in the finals, him and the Lehigh, Stanich. So Stanich did place, so that was impressive. But yeah, I thought it was going to be anybody's weight, and that's the way it turned out.
Yeah. GT, what do you think about 25?
Well, a couple of my biggest takeaways was, once again, pure chaos the entire year. The national tournament didn't disappoint. Pure chaos again. Probably the most surprising result for me, even though he had an up and down year, was Matt Ramos not placing.
Yeah.
Once again, the way that his bracket fell, that was a rematch of, the NWCA All-Star Classic in the quarters between him and Noto, which was, once again, sudden victory win for Noto. But it was kind of the same thing when we were back in that, like at Rec Hall. So, And then once again, I think probably something else that stuck out to me was just the youth at this weight too. Like Spratley rounded 12, Brendan Davis rounded 12. Stanish ended up getting to be an All-American, but like those guys are all very young athletes at this weight class. So I think there was a couple other guys that I thought would have had a better tournament in general. But I mean, once again, this weight class was just chaos from the jump all season. So, I mean, those are just my initial takeaways, just from the standpoint of like returning national champion. Not in all. Yeah. So
I think there were a couple dark horses here that didn't come through that a lot of people picked. I think Noah Certain, a lot of people, especially in Missouri, had, in the back of their hip pocket. He went 0-2. Dean Peterson was a guy that, if there was a brick, a lot of people thought he had beat Braden Davis during the duel, and he didn't place. So you have that. A lot of people, he wasn't a dark horse, but a lot of people thought Spratley could make a run, and he could. He lost a super close match again to Ayala. Cooper Flynn's another guy that was ranked really high during the year, but probably the guy I think that surprised me the most that was indicative of his team was Camacho. NC State did not have the tournament that a lot of us thought they could. They were actually seeded to take second, and they had a ton of guys go 1-2 or 2-2. Pat Popolizio is a great coach. That team will be back. He's a great human being too. I don't know if Adam Hall, having already verbaled to Utah Valley, had anything to do with it. I don't know how that all worked out, but Camacho's a guy that I think a lot of us thought could make a run. I mean, this is a bracket where if you said, well, this guy's path, nobody had a path in this weight that you go, it's terrible, because they were all kind of the same all year. So, and Mark, I think I jumped off the Figs bandwagon for about 2 weeks, but I was on it for about 50 ever since this time last year. I just think he's the best kid. I think he's the kid. If they all wrestle their best, he's the one that's going to win. And man, his walkout song is awesome. His family is awesome. Watching those guys dance afterward is awesome. Like, I want to get an invite to a Figueroa party, because those people will be a lot of fun to hang out with. All right, 133. GT, you can go first here. I will just say this. I'll go first quick, and then I'll shut up. I thought the crowd at this weight this weekend was, I don't even want to say a little rough. I just thought it was unnecessary towards Dayton Fix. But GT, I know you've picked Fix for several years, and with good reason, and he took second here, Vito won. Your thoughts on 33?
Well, I think I got a chance to see Dayton on Saturday night, and I saw, like, I don't know how many stitches it was, but like 13 stitches across his eyebrow here. I believe from everybody on Twitter and everybody following the event, I believe this finals match was 22 minutes long.
Yeah.
So, Vito got cut on the top of his head. Once again, these guys had wars, and we'll talk about that at 74 as well. There's a lot of blood time with Rocco Welsh. And Rocco looked like he had been in a street fight the entire time, all the way up into the finals. Like his face was all cut up, deep cuts everywhere. I will say probably the sportsmanship that was displayed between Fix and Arujau, just as them as competitors, was really cool to see. Just because they've seen each other forever.
Yeah.
So once again, I think athlete to athlete, I think there's nothing but respect for everybody within this field. I would say probably on Dayton's run, I felt like he wrestled probably the tightest he's ever wrestled. Like he's usually a guy that goes out and gets bonus points or tries, he's a little bit more active. But yeah, I think once again, I've picked Fix the past couple of years, been kind of my guy for a long time. But never count out Vito Arujau. I mean, this guy, he's got a clutch gene for himself. Like he's a monster. So a lot of respect for that individual and his athletic ability. So, and just as a good wrestler himself. That kind of round out the rest of the results and things. I thought Crookham wrestled really well. Beat some really, really talented guys. Had a really great tournament and season for himself. Want to make sure that he gets his flowers.
Yeah.
What a ride for Arkansas Little Rock with Nasir Bailey going back and getting fourth. Huge program initial, like a momentum getter for Earsman and their program. And then, I thought the rest of it was really cool. Got to give a humongous shout out to my boy, Evan Frost.
Yeah.
Super excited for him as a freshman, being able to make it as far as he did in the tournament and have the results that he did. Just couldn't be prouder of that young man. Going to be a very big factor for the Iowa State wrestling team moving forward. So just want to make sure I shout out and give him a little bit more love.
Your brother was not at all proud of him. So
oh yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I think he told every single person at the event and in Power and Light that, like he was there to support Evan Frost. So if you weren't there and there was some random dude that was talking about him, that of course was my brother.
Listen, we've had guys come through Merrimack, like Mark's had guys come through Iowa Central when they're doing well. It's natural for that. And that's one of the great things about wrestling. Like these kids don't accomplish stuff by themselves, and they're ultimately the only one on the mat, but it takes a village to get them there. I'll go next here and hand it over to Mark. Clearly there was something wrong with Vito all year or something right with him at the Nationals. But after the second round, Vito majored his way through the tournament till the finals, and Dayton had, after the first round, had nothing but 1 point and or tiebreaker matches besides the loss. So Vito was just on a separate level. The meme of Vito pointing to the center of the mat and having Crookham meet him there is going to be a T-shirt and a bunch of other things. That was pretty awesome. This thing, the seeds, at least most of the top 8 all finished in the top 8, obviously in a different order. The Ragusan just controlling Shawver after getting tech fouled by him 2 weeks ago just shows you how delicate wrestling is, how easily it can be switched. I thought Marlon Yarborough from Virginia, even though he went 1 and 2 as a kid with a super high ceiling. Shout out to Kairini, second-time All-American from St. Louis. I thought Frost was really impressive, as you said, GT. And what's crazy here is these are the 2 weights that Penn State performed below their seeds, because we're going to get to the team score stuff. But Nagao didn't pull up. I'm sorry. Nagao was a 10 seed and made the blood round. So he performed exactly to where he was supposed to. Obviously, Davis was the 1 seed and DNP'd. And then Brody Teskey making the blood round. I know he's a fan favorite for a lot of people. Crookham's interview on why he took third was really good too. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, something's going to have to change because we can't have 22, 23-minute final matches. And I know there's nothing you can do about blood time. And so I felt bad there, but I think there were 3 or 4 bricks thrown during that match. Now, I think every one of them got overturned. So they were good bricks, but it takes so long to go through this anymore. I mean, my gosh, you could have people driving from Iowa when the match started and dang near getting there to watch the end of it. It seemed like, because it was a long time, and I think we lose fans when it takes that long to make a decision. I really do. I hope we can change it somehow. But it was a fun tournament at this weight. I think the guys wrestled really hard. I get Crookham, to me, is an absolute beast. To come back and get third after what Vito did to him in the semis was nothing short of amazing, because that had to hurt. Vito is still one of the best wrestlers in America, I think. With his talent and his speed, he's just so much faster than everybody else. And Dayton, I would have loved to seen Dayton win. I think he's been an ambassador for the sport for the last 7 years. He's been at Oklahoma State. So my hat's off to him. He took it like a champ. He did his interview. He just did what he could out there. And sometimes you run into guys that are just a little bit better than you, and they have a style. Their styles are different. Vito's just too quick. And
well, I don't know that he's better than him every single time. He was better than him Saturday night, though. I don't know what you think, but I think Dayton's actually beaten Vito before.
Yeah,
so
I'm not saying Dayton can't beat him, but when it comes down to the finals of a national tournament or semis of a national tournament, they haven't been on the same plane, David. Vito's been a lot better the last 2 times they've wrestled. And even though Vito didn't have the year Dayton had, when they met, when it counted, I just think he's head and shoulders better than anybody in the country at that weight. So, and he proved it again.
These first 2 weights show you don't have to be the best guy in November, December, or January.
Yep.
For sure. The other thing that's a tangent to this is Carter McGonigal is in the portal. He's going to be a 1-year guy, kind of like a Olenek. So I don't know who's going to get him, but he's going to be really good. And when you're talking about challenges, I was on the elevator, and Cody Sanderson, I got on the elevator. He was already on the elevator. He was talking to a guy, and he said it was okay to mention this. He talked about a challenge that Penn State lost, and they reviewed the wrong sequence. So they didn't find what they were looking for because they reviewed the wrong sequence.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how you tighten this up. I do know the finals shouldn't take that long because there's not, 3 people in the back trying to monitor 8 mats. Those guys in the back should be watching the match. They should be watching the match, and as soon as Grant throws a brick, they should instantly know where to go to. I can also tell you this from being a play-by-play mat side guy at the Big 12s. There was a person working the review camera one time that she didn't know anything about wrestling. And the referees come over, and I'm like, she goes, "What do I do?" And I said, "Just rewind it and I'll tell you when to stop." They need somebody that knows wrestling. Because those are the delays. And if they're reviewing the wrong sequence and you lose a brick and you only get 3 in the tournament if you have 7 to 10 guys, that's terrible.
Here's a funny thing, David. ESPN, they do a good job. I thought the people that broadcast it did a really good job. Cormier, JB. So, hats off to them. But they kind of went through the process of when you review it, and they showed the room where these people are at during the meets, and it was an empty room when they showed it, I understand that. But for fans that don't know wrestling, they go up and show where this is being done, and there's nobody in the room. And so people are sitting at home, David, with a 22-minute match thinking, well, maybe somebody should get in that room and actually do their job that's what they're thinking because they don't know, what's going on. So that part was
go back to
entertaining.
part of that sentence you said. You say you understand why the room is empty. Why is the room empty?
Because for them to go in there and show it, they weren't going to show it during the wrestling. So they did it in between the rounds just to show where this room's at and all the monitors that they have, the different angles of the cameras that they have views, during the match so they can make the right decisions. So that's does that make sense?
Well, it does now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't make sense the way you originally said it, but it does now. So,
Yeah.
All right, 141. So Mendez beats Bartlett. Third place is Hardy over Woods. Fifth place, Echemendia over McNeil. Seventh place, Ryan Jack over Vombar. I'll go first here. I think Vombar's a guy. If you'd given me 10 brackets to fill out, I would never have filled him out to take eighth. So, we all like to talk about what we were right about and wrong about. Completely wrong about Vombar. I did have Mendez on one of my teams, and I just felt like he was wrestling the best. But like Jay Jagger said, he didn't do any part of the game plan in the finals. Bartlett had that match, did everything but win it. Had a double, got to rear standing. Perfect standing Granby by Mendez, right to a double leg of his own. There's GT probably knows more of these kids and families than I do. I know Andre Bartlett, and it's like, and I talked to Jesse Mendez Saturday night. It's hard because when you meet any of these people, they're almost all impossible to root against. So I thought Brock Hardy from the 9 seed, beating Lemley, losing to Mendez, and then just doing an absolute juggernaut run, beat Coderhant, pin Jack, beat McNeil by forfeit, and then beat Real Woods was significant. And then, Woods taking fourth. I'm sure that's not the way, obviously, he wanted it to end. And Echemendia is a guy that I think we thought was a dark horse to make the finals, lost to Mendez, and ends up fifth, loses to Woods. So pretty chalky weight. And a bunch of these guys, a bunch of them come back. So Flo's got a really good article out, by the way, on who's got how much eligibility left. So I think that's an article. It'll obviously all sort itself out when people start putting out the rankings. And if I was still doing this for track alongside Mark, our preseason rankings would already be partially done, minus people moving in, moving out, red shirts, all that kind of stuff, people moving up and down a weight. Yep. GT, go ahead.
Well, I think, Mendez was on a heater at Big Tens. You guys all saw how dominant he was in that postseason. What a really good run against some super talented guys through that top side of that bracket. Yeah, we all thought that Echemendia was going to be a potential guy that could be the one guy that gets him, along with Brock Hardy having his run to all the way back to third. I was able to see Brock Hardy was interviewed by Barstool Sports and the Yak, and it's the Spladle heard around the world.
Yeah.
He once again came off as a very likable wrestler, which we once again, the reach of being able to get into some of that other mainstream media. I think Mark mentioned it earlier with the commenting with JB and DC, elevating the brand to everybody having a larger reach for the sport. But yeah, really cool to see, even if it was something like that, where you're sitting there in a spladle and there's nothing you can do about it. Kudos to Brock Hardy for making that a positive for him.
Yeah.
Also got to give my guy flowers, Lachlan McNeil. Pretty scary injury. I don't know exactly what it will actually occur, but he's probably going to get either some sort of scope or surgery on his knee. So once again, really a tight match with Real Woods there in the quarters, and then basically couldn't couldn't make his run all the way back, but sad to see someone's tournament end due to medical injury. But yeah, what a run for him as he was coming back to be another All-American for UNC.
Yeah, and UNC was in a transition year with Rob Cole coming over, so important for that program to continue to have an All-American. Mark?
Yeah, kudos to Ohio State here. Mendez, he was taken down. If you remember the match, David, he was taken down twice during it, which I didn't think he was getting out of either of them. One time he was able to pass the leg and just hang on for dear life to get back to his feet. And then that last takedown that Bartlett was in on and got behind him, standing rear, tried to lift him up, and he grambied him. And the way he was able to get to that double leg and position himself to win the match was just like a magician. It was such a good way to finish a match. I was really impressed with him. Obviously, Bartlett's a stud, and he actually had a really good tournament. He looked pretty dominating, getting a pin, I think, in the was it in the semis he got a pin? Or the quarters?
Bartlett had 2 pins, which you could have bet a lot of money that wasn't going to happen. But I think he pinned both guys when it was like tied 1-1.
Yeah, but I mean, he's getting a lot better mat wrestling, which is impressive. So Echemendia to me is somebody you're going to want to keep an eye on for the next few years. He's got 2 years of eligibility. Like you said, David Flo has this chart out there, how many years these guys have left if they want to take them. So it's going to be a fun way to watch for the next 2 or 3 years for sure. And I was impressed. And Hardy, if you remember right at the beginning of the year, people, because he was hurt at Nationals last year and didn't do real well, they didn't have him as being a contender. And I thought he would be a contender, and he wrestled like it at this national tournament.
Yeah. Well, he certainly did. And I also shout out, I think we mentioned, and one of us did, but shout out to Real Woods for he was a really fun kid to watch the last couple of years and really been a good leader for Iowa. So, All right, Mark, I think it's your turn to go first at 49. Let me just set the table. Caleb Henson first, Gomez second, Kasich third, Ty Waters, who we talked about, 4, Parko 5, Lovett 6, Swiderski 7, Quinn Kinner 8. The floor is yours, Mark.
Well, you'd think I'd start with Henson being the champion and how good he wrestled and how dominant he was against Gomez in the finals after that first period, because that was nip and tuck there for quite a while in the first period, and then he just opened it up. But I've got to talk about the kid from Penn State here, Kasich. To me, he's the one that won him winning the national title by record points. Without him getting third, they don't do it. And nobody really gave this kid a chance to do real well here. He's the 7th seed, and we thought maybe he was a little bit overranked at 7 because he hadn't wrestled a lot of these guys. He's really a true 41-pounder, and to go into this weight and come back and get third, nothing short of amazing. And how impressive that was to me. Arrington, I thought, was better than I thought he was. Once I got to watch him wrestle here at the Nationals, he's a competitor. And I really felt bad for Lovett. I thought he'd win this weight. I thought he was probably the best guy and just didn't have a very good tournament. I don't know if it was a bad weight cut. I don't know if something happened. Things didn't go his way. But once he lost, he didn't look good on the back either. So I don't know what's going on. But it's hard to wrestle when your goal is one thing, is to win a national title, and you don't.
Well, I'll talk about Lovett if GT doesn't. Go ahead, GT.
Well, I think one of the things, once again, big shout out to Jason Bryant for throwing out some weird facts that I would have never known while at this tournament. And 2 of them happened at this weight class. One was whatever the first guy that ever lost first round and wrestled all the way back for third had a specific name that I had no idea what it was. And Jason made comment to that based off of what Kasich did. And then also for the state of Georgia, having its first ever NCAA Division I national champion come out of Georgia with Caleb Henson. What a really cool testament to the Southeast and what wrestling is going on down that way. So was really cool to hear. And once again, as you know, those guys throw out stuff that is just really cool to know that I would have never been able to research on my own. So, yeah, big shout out to that. I believe that is the second ever NCAA champion in wrestling ever for Virginia Tech, Mekhi Lewis being the first, and then Caleb being the second. So once again, something very awesome for the ACC and Virginia Tech, just as a program. I would say probably one of the other things that I would love to talk about at this weight class is the gentleman out of West Virginia, Ty Waters, freshman.
Dog.
Just a monster. What a tournament for that young man. Really did everything, I think it was in the blood round, ends up pinning Abbas from Stanford. Basically his only loss on the front side was to Henson, comes all the way back, gets in the 3rd and 4th place pass for West Virginia. What a tournament for that young man. And once again, the future is extremely bright for him. Definitely somebody that you're going to have to keep on your radar as time moves forward and seeing what this weight class looks like for the next couple of years.
For sure. I actually ran into Kasich at Power and Light Saturday night, and he said he wants to wrestle next year. And I think we forget about Penn State that they lost Van Ness, and this kid comes in and scores 19 team points for him, which is basically a second-place finish because it's 16 plus. It's literally 16 plus a major plus a tech. So unbelievable job. And it feels like he'll probably redshirt if they bring Bartlett back at 41 and Van Ness back at 49. But I don't know what they'll do. Obviously, Kale's pretty freaking good at putting his lineups together. I remember saying to you guys on the air, I thought Caleb Henson might be the best guy in the weight on his feet after he lost to CKLV. Levitt was better on top. I love Mark Manning and those guys. I cannot for the life of me understand why Riz Levitt picked top. I don't understand it. Like, for the people that go back and watch the match, but it's 0-0 and he's got riding time. So he's got 2 minutes of riding time and he's got his choice. And it feels like top's the one position you don't take. It feels like you pick bottom, he kicks you loose. Now you're up 2-0 with the riding time. Even if he takes you down, it's 3-2. As long as you get out quick enough, it's 3-3. And then he did the semi-slide, like you mentioned, guys. Gomez was, I think, a very trendy and smart pick in these contests where he was seeded and ranked and all that stuff. Gomez lost. If you thought Gomez was going to lose, he almost lost in the exact way you would expect. He just went for crazy stuff too quick, too early, and just put himself behind the 8 ball. I mean, Caleb Henson absolutely deserved to win the match, but Gomez definitely did some things that made it a little bit easier for him. But Gomez is also going to the Olympics. So, and he's gonna cut it loose at the Olympics. I don't think there's any question about that. So, all right, we'll keep it moving. 157 GT. I think you're first here. I'm trying to keep it straight in my head. Go ahead.
Yeah, Levi Haynes is a machine. He looked really good pretty much the entire tournament. Once again, that's why he's in the voting for the Hodge Trophy as a sophomore. Looked really, really good, really dominant throughout the entire process. Probably one of the biggest shocks to me at this weight class, or one of the takeaways, was how healthy I thought Andonian looked. I thought he was a little bit more banged up, but he made a great run on the front side and then was able to solidify himself on the backside to another All-American finish. That match between him and Meyer Shapiro, where he was basically riding legs on top and got caught for a defensive pin. That was an epic match. It was really close. But, you know, this weight class, with a lot of those kind of like the mainstays of the weight class, the Peyton Robbs of the world, the Jared Franiks, Ja'Cory Teamer, you kind of had these like mainstays for the weight class for a while. And then you have, you know, a couple of young guys coming through, you know, Shapiro getting third and, you know, Haynes winning it. So what a really cool and diverse weight class. But this was a wild one.
Yeah, I think I'm going second here. Shapiro's quarterfinal loss was really weird. It's like he went into concussion protocol. You can take as long as you want. He came back and he just stopped wrestling and ended up losing a takedown late to Cardenas, which was really shocking. Like super, super surprising to me that happened. I think another guy that surprised me here in a negative way was Cody Chittum. He looked like, I don't know, he just didn't look like himself round one, got majored by Tommy Askey. So that was really surprising. You mentioned Andoni and GT. He loses to Ed Scott every time and beat him pretty handily at nationals. And then this weight is one of the weights that was really indicative of Mizzou's tournament. They took 11th and they had 5 guys go 0-2, including 2 guys that were returning All-Americans in Mahler and Mako. And I think the 6th year stuff caught up to these guys. I also think that Mizzou definitely wanted to put together an awesome team for Kansas City because it's in Missouri, obviously, and didn't happen. Also, really good to see Teamer make the finals. Arizona State wrestled a dang near perfect tournament for them. They didn't have enough guys to take second, but the 4 guys they had just about wrestled collectively. I think wrestled the seeds when you go Figueroa went from 8-1. Teamer went from 2-2. I think Parka was a 2 and finished 5. And I think Schultz was a 4 and finished 5 or 6. But they basically hit their numbers collectively. So that was super impressive by them. I think they finished 6th. So, and then Franek, I thought Franek would do a lot better than 8th. I mean, I get he was a 10 seed. I guess because we've seen him do better at nationals. So, Mark.
Yeah, I agree with you, David. I thought Teamer just didn't have a good tournament. Actually, did not even have a good Big Ten. Something's going on. I don't know any idea what it is. He seems real one-dimensional. Doesn't scramble well.
Time out. Did you say Teamer or Franek?
Or Franek. That's what I meant.
Go ahead.
Franek just, I don't know what's going on there because he's very talented. He's hard to score on. He stays in really good position. But when he gives up his legs, it's just like he doesn't have any flexibility whatsoever. And guys, it's easy to score. Shapiro was impressive to me, but I've been impressed with him all year, last couple of years watching him do international style. So I thought getting third was, phenomenal for him. I thought he could possibly win it, but that didn't happen. So, you got to give Penn State all the credit here. This young man has kept improving since day one. He had a lot of close matches last year, won a lot of, 1-point matches taken down in the third period to win it. And this year he separated himself pretty much all year long. And so, kudos to him. Teamer had a good tournament. I thought he wrestled really smart, like you said, David, this weekend, getting second. He was just outclassed in the finals. You lose 5-0 or 6-0 in the finals, don't score a point. That's pretty dominant.
He scored the most team points of anybody.
Yeah. But couldn't score a single point in the finals, which just tells you how good Haynes is. I mean, Haynes is the real deal.
Tech fall, major fall, 5-0 shutout. All right. I didn't pick this rotation, but we're kind of going first on every 3 weights, and I got 165. So let's just go through the results quickly. Carr over Messenbrink, Keegan over Caliendo, Olenek over Garvin, Hall over Taylor. Dean Hamidi not placing was very shocking. Julian Ramirez, I think I told anybody that would listen, I thought Caliendo would beat him in the quarters. So him falling to the blood round, and we talk about this all the time. The blood round's tough when you're coming off a loss and the other guy's coming off a win. Amin, same thing, same blood round situation. Ramirez, Amin, and Hamidi all lost in the quarters and then lost their blood round match. I think the 2 matches that people talk about as much as any in this tournament are Carr O'Toole and Carr Messenbrink. I'll tell you what I had right first. I called Mark and I said David Carr is going to double leg Messenbrink in the first 10 seconds of the meet and try to ride the crud out of him. Did I not tell you that, Mark?
Yep.
And it worked. I think he actually got himself tired with all the mat returns. Messenbrink's so good at getting back to his feet. I think Messenbrink, it certainly seems like he didn't know that there was riding time, which if you get rode a minute and a half, you got to know that. Messenbrink feels like Nolf to me. Like, I don't know if he's going to lose again in college. And I think he might just kill everybody, especially with Keegan going up to 74. The Carr-Keegan match, these guys, I think it's 3-2 all-time Carr now. You could just go back and watch these 5 matches and learn so much about wrestling. Like, if you're a nerd and you like wrestling, my gosh. And Keegan had gone pin to that point, and then goes tech fall decision on the back. And Keegan said in his interview he got tired. He looked tired, and I've never seen Keegan get tired. And so just shocking. I'm working on getting David Carr on the podcast this week on Matt Chat. I think he's a kid of faith, and I'm super interested in how he looked at all this from that perspective. So I think, Grant, you go next here. I'm not good at keeping track of all of it. I apologize.
It's all good. Once again, we're all going to basically say the same stuff. So I think especially at this weight, we all kind of knew that this weight class was, pure fireworks, and a lot of reason why a lot of people wanted to watch, this weight class unfold, as we all thought like Messenbrink was, definitely a guy that could make it out of the bottom. I definitely think that the way that, Julian Ramirez wrestles, it was, an interesting match between him and Caliendo. I thought Caliendo looked really good this tournament. He was scoring tons of points. So really big, I think, weekend for him. I think as we all kind of looked at the matches, especially between Carr and Messenbrink in the finals, I definitely think that, to your point, I think Messenbrink thought it was tied. But what a career for David Carr. I'm just going to focus on him for right now, just because I was able to bounce around to a lot of the after socials for a lot of the programs. I was able to stop by the Iowa State social briefly and got a chance to hear David Carr speak there. What a great ambassador for the sport. What a great wrestler for kids to look up to. Once again, I don't know if he considers himself to be like that type of a role model, but I would best put him in that category. But Dresser told the group that he has I believe it's the 4th or 3rd best winning I think it's the 4th best winning percentage in Iowa State wrestling history. Number 1 being, of course, Cale Sanderson at 159-0. Number 2 is Dan Gable. Number 3, Tim Krieger. David Carr is number 4. So, as far as all of the guys that have come through that program, David Carr has literally cemented himself as a legend for that institution. With also probably one of the best rivalries we've seen in wrestling for a long time, with 5 matches between him and Keegan. What a way to cement yourself for your senior year, and also just being able to, once again, edge up on a best of 5 series against one of the best college wrestlers that we have pound for pound in Keegan O'Toole this year. And then, of course, beating the freshman phenom guy with Messenbrink. What a story that will be if Messenbrink goes on to win 3 additional titles, is that one of his only losses at the NCAA championships is David Carr.
Well, before I flip over to Mark, you could pretty much argue that David Carr's the second best wrestler, because Kale and Gable shouldn't even count. They're like not even human beings. They're so good. And I had the unfortunate / fortunate experience of working out with Tim Krieger for a whole year. And for some reason, he liked to work out with me, maybe because he could just kill me. So maybe GT will tell the story about my riding time scenario with Gary McCall if that comes up here later on in the podcast. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Kudos to David Carr. What a class act. Talk about sportsmanship between these two guys. After the match, they were both on one knee shaking hands. They really have respect for each other. They both said in their interviews that he made me a better wrestler, both ways. And, that you don't hear that much in sports anymore, that somebody makes them, that they compete against a better athlete, a better person. So they have such great respect. I picked David to be in the finals over Keegan just because I thought he was able to get in at the Big 12s, get in on Keegan's legs, and Keegan's never really touched David's legs during that match. He was just able to counter, and David found a way to finish it this time. So kudos to him. Messenbrink, I don't know what happened there. He had 30-some seconds left and never took a shot. I mean, he usually has 7 or 8 shots within 30 seconds and never took a shot. So, something, he thought he was tied, was going to take it into overtime or something. I have no idea. But I don't think the bench was pressing it either. Kale and Cody, and they were there, but you didn't hear them yelling or screaming. So I don't know where the confusion was, but I think Messenbrink, I'll be surprised, David, if he's not a 3-time national champ.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's going to be at Penn State. He may go to another school someday. Who knows? But I think he's going to end up being a 3-time national champ. And then the rest of the weight, after those 3, Jiminy Christmas. Keegan O'Toole coming back after that defeat and wrestling well in the wrestlebacks is, people don't understand how hard that is to do, especially when you're a 2-time national champ. And, he's such a class act, and he's so fun to watch. I agree with Grant. I think Caliendo had probably wrestled the best of anybody from Iowa, maybe except for Drake. But I think he opened it up a lot more than Drake Ayala did. So he was fun to watch, and I think he's got two years left to wrestle. And he's going to be fun to watch in the future. So, yeah.
Well, and let's just make sure Messenbrink seems infinitely happy at Penn State. So we're not suggesting he's leaving. And the other thing that we have not mentioned at all, but we should, all these national champs just qualified for the Olympic trials.
Yep.
And I'll say this, I feel like Jesse Mendez is kind of a threat at 141, which is 65 kilograms, which is 143. Because Bo Bartlett got his hand raised against Nick Lee. They went back and changed it. But they're all in that mix. And David Carr had not qualified before, and neither had Kirkfleet, which we get there, and Starachi, which is coming up next. So, all right, Mark, 174, you're batting leadoff here.
Yeah, we can't say enough about Starachi. He got taken down the first 2 matches by people that normally would never even look at his legs.
Look at his legs. I like that.
You can't get in on him. Nobody wants to shoot on Starachi, and they did, and they took him down right away, both his first 2 matches. So, but he found ways to win. He was not even close. He said he was 100%. There's no way he was 100%. I know in his head he wanted to feel like he was, but it doesn't matter. He just dominates. He finds a way to win. it was never a question whether he was going to win when you watched him wrestle. He controlled the matches. Even if he got taken down, he'd come right back and score. He'd turn somebody, he'd ride the living dog out of them, and just take everything they had out of them. So, one of the greatest wrestlers that will ever wrestle in the NCAAs is Carter Strachey. I truly believe that. He is such a stud. And to watch him go out on top was really neat. Besides that, I was impressed with Michigan here in, who was it?
Griffith.
Griffith coming back and getting third. When he was losing to Sima from UNI, my God, where did this kid come from, Grant? I mean, I didn't know anything about him. He was a wild card, 28 seed, and he's in the semis of the, or could have been in the semis. Yeah, he was winning against Griffith by what, 5 in the third period?
5-0.
Yeah, and Griffith came back and somehow won that match. So, but that was impressive. And then he ends up being an All-American from UNI. So,
wait. Did Sima place?
I thought he did.
No, he got to the blood round.
No, he did not.
Okay.
He
My
lost
bad.
in the quarters and lost in the blood round. We cannot put out erroneous information.
Okay, but I'm pretty proud of what he was able to do as a 28 seed. He was impressive. So,
GT, go ahead.
Well, I think even with like whatever, let's call it like COVID years and stuff like that. I mean, Carter Strachey is going to go down as a 4-time NCAA champion along with Aaron Brooks. Just legendary status for both of those individuals. I think to Mark's point too, like Carter Strachey is, he's going to be a legend at Penn State forever. I think he's one of the greatest, Penn State guys, just because he's a 4-timer, been able to do it for a really long time. And once again, I don't know to the extent of his injuries. I don't think anybody does outside of maybe the Penn State medical staff and like the 5 coaches that are there. But to see him go through the tournament with whatever injury is that he did have, it was enough to, give him like just that ability to wrestle however many matches he had to get in order to be in the finals and potentially win it. Just give him a position. So a lot of kudos to him. Once again, the program saver, Shane Griffith, what a warrior that guy is. Probably out there held together with like duct tape and glue.
Yeah.
What a warrior to be able to come back and get third. And once again, to do that for the University of Michigan, once again, a lot of faith in that individual for being able to, one, make the transition to Michigan, and then also to continue your success at another institution. Mad props for that, man. I think that this weight class, especially on the bottom side of the bracket, we'd all kind of discussed everything, that it was kind of all of that attention was paid to the top. But I think making the most of their opportunity was Rocco Welsh, a guy that probably wasn't even in the mix outside of maybe the room at Ohio State. The guy that was supposed to be at that weight class was Karchla, who then got hurt.
Yeah.
So once again, making the most of your opportunity, and all of a sudden you're in the national finals with a shot to potentially be an NCAA champion. So once again, got to give a lot of respect to that young man to make that season his own and to like basically make his run. What a tournament for that young man.
Yeah, that guy is a savage. I don't know if Strachey comes back, but he can. And he might be on a pitch count next year. I mean, I know he wants to go to MMA. I also think you're priced the business of being the only 5-time national champ if he can do it. And selfishly, my goodness, I hope he comes back because Keegan says he's going up, and man, that would be fun. Keegan beat Edmund Ruth. So, that would be interesting there. The Lenny Wolak, who made the semis from Columbia, he had a really good run, took Welsh to overtime, and ended up 6th. Cade DeVos had, lost to Wolak, but did a nice job on the back. South Dakota State had 4 All-Americans, and 2 of them lost first round and came back through, I think, Tanner Jordan and Bennett Berge. So shout out to those guys. Patrick Kennedy not placing really surprised me. Simma's run completely surprised me. So, all right, we'll go to 84.
One other thing, David, they did announce on ESPN that Woolley is transferring to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, there's already a done deal because
he can't wrestle 5th year in the Columbia. Yeah.
Cardenas is going somewhere else too. That's Ivy League, you have to leave.
Yep.
So if you have another year, you can't do it at an Ivy League. So, okay, I think GT, you're first here. 184.
All right. Parker Keckeisen is, I think that if you like remove the skin from his face, I believe he's a Terminator underneath. Like if this is just like one of those movies where it's like the man just seems like he's superhuman when it comes to his pace, his position, the way that he handles himself. What a professional that this guy is. I think that's why he was one of the, kind of the fan favorites at this weight class, kind of all year, just kind of making his run. Can't say enough nice things about that young man. Also, probably, and I've been saying this pretty much all year, that this is the best I've ever seen Dustin Plott. I thought
he wrestled great. He wrestled great.
The whole year, the whole tournament, everything. I thought Plott wrestled the best he's ever wrestled when he was been at Oklahoma State. So, I think that guy's just a journeyman. And once again, he's back again. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Plott does next year. I'd say probably another big takeaway, I think, from this weight class is there were some guys that I thought didn't have a good enough tournament that had a good regular season. I thought one of the guys that I thought would have a better tournament was Lenny Pinto. I just think I have a lot of respect for him as a wrestler, but I just thought that this tournament kind of got away from him a little bit. But I think Truax didn't necessarily represent I think he was hurt pretty bad. Yeah. Once again, to the extent I don't know. Once again, I think these are kind of things that we've heard, but and once again, not to just praise and then basically tear people down, but I thought the guy that I wanted to basically make sure that I put into this conversation was Salazar from Minnesota.
Yes.
I think a lot of people didn't give him a lot of respect as a Big Ten champion and, throughout the season, but what a gutsy performance for him to make it all the way to the semifinals as a 2 seed, had to gut out a lot of wins, and was able to end up being an All-American this year. I want to make sure that I gave him some flowers just because, out of all of the 2 seeds, I thought maybe Cade DeVos and Isaiah Salazar were probably the people that weren't talked about enough as 2 seeds. And both those guys ended up being All-Americans as the 2. So great tournament for both those gentlemen. And once again, couldn't be happier for Northern Iowa to have another national champion at 184 pounds between Drew Foster, Taylor Lujan being the number 1 guy the year that they didn't have a tournament, and now Parker Keckeisen, kind of a 184 little run that they've had at Northern Iowa now.
For sure. I think a couple of things stuck out to me here besides what you mentioned, and great call on Salazar and those guys, GT. TJ Stewart was the guy that kind of had a little mini run there. He had Salazar, I was saying a beat. He was winning late. And then just kind of stopped wrestling for a few seconds. And Salazar, if he's half as strong as he looks, he creates some grown man problems for people. And Foca not placing really surprised me. Him losing to the Franklin and Marshall guy, same exact thing. Conway, same exact thing. He lost super late, with 1 second left. And then he loses to TJ Stewart in the blood round 3-2. So Bennett Berge loses first round and goes 11-0, 7-6, 14-7, 13-8, 17-2, 3-2, and then takes fourth to Munoz, 9-7. Shout out to Munoz for taking third. Truax comes one spot away from finishing fourth every year. He takes fifth. Munoz pinned him in the backside semis to screw up that possibility. And I've watched Keckeisen wrestle Plott. I was there in person when he wrestled him at the duel, and I guarantee you Keckeisen was sick because he was doing like the Barry Sanders, like getting up slow after every exchange. And Oklahoma State realistically thought we'll get him next time. And right now, Keckeisen's just better than Plott, and Plott's better than everybody else. Like, I'm not sure it's really that close. I know Plott lost a split with Pinto during the year, but it feels like both those guys made jumps. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, let's go to if I had a vote for the Hodge, I'd give it to Keckeisen. I think he had a phenomenal year. I think he absolutely dominated that weight. That weight may not be pound for pound as strong as 97, so I'd understand why if they gave it to Brooks, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I think Keckeisen is an absolute terror. He was so fun to watch. And Plott, like you and Grant both said, David, he's been impressive all year. And to watch Keckeisen just absolutely take him apart piece by piece. And he didn't run through him. He took his time. He scored every time he shot, he was able to finish. He selected his shots. It was a masterpiece to watch him wrestle. Munoz, give him credit coming back and getting third. I think he was the third best wrestler in the country at this weight, especially that weekend. So Salazar's an absolute beast. So he's done a great job at Minnesota. But that Stewart, like you said, from Virginia Tech, as a true freshman, is phenomenal. He's so fun to watch.
Yeah, that lateral drop was real, right?
Yep.
All right, we'll go to 197. I think the guy that will win the Hodge is right here in Brooks, four-time national champ, undefeated, tech fall, tech fall, 6-1 over Hidley. Hidley was super dominant all year, and then here, tech fall, major, 4-1 decision. Buchanan, really nice tournament, finishes third. Cardenas, really nice tournament, fourth. Tanner Sloan, fifth. Rocky Elam made a nice run to the semis, took sixth. Stephen Little Rock, second All-American, is seventh. Michael Beard is eighth. I don't know that a lot surprised. I think Buchanan taking third was kind of surprising, although that's where he was ranked at the beginning of the year. I talked to Alex Clemson, and he told me that Jackson Smith had been super sick, was weighing in the 180s, and just didn't tell anybody. So here's a suggestion. If you're not feeling well, tell your coach. There's things medically they can do to help you that are totally legal. I don't think there's any major surprises to me here. Maybe you guys will find some things I didn't. I just think Aaron Brooks is freaking great at wrestling, man. And I think he's one of the 5 best guys in the world at 86 kgs. That weight class is going to be fascinating because I feel like it's super likely it's him and Zahid in the one-match final of the tournament to get to David Taylor. And Zahid actually was up on Brooks like 6 or 8-0, and Brooks ran him down in Vegas. GT, you'll know what year that was. I think it was, I don't know if it was this year 23 or 22. I think it was 23, because then Zahid went and moved up to 92 and made the team, and Brooks lost in Final X to Taylor. I think Brooks is going to wrestle Taylor really close. I might be crazy enough to pick him. Not sure if I'm prisoner of the moment. But and Brooks just seems like a super high quality human being.
Yep.
So congratulations to him on being a 4-timer like Starachi. We need to, when we get done with these last 2 weights, put what Penn State's done in context. GT, go ahead.
Yeah, I think when Mark was saying, like, I'd love to see Parker Keckeisen win the Hodge, I truly believe that he would be the one that I would pick as well. But I how can you not give it to Aaron Brooks or like Carter Strachey being 4-timers? And then once again, not that it would count in voting, but like Brooks has beaten Keckeisen every time that they've wrestled. So it's, I think that he's a shoo-in for it. Absolutely. I thought Brooks handled himself against a very, very worthy adversary in Hidlay in the finals. Those boys can move. I mean, they're wrestling out there and looking like little guys. So I thought, as far as like, I would say maybe some surprising things, just in general, I thought one thing that probably surprised me probably the most, I would say probably out of the entire tournament was, Buchanan coming back and getting third. And then I think probably just how Glazier had gone about his whole season, being just like the journeyman, beating everybody, continuing to wrestle. I just thought that, wrestled maybe a little bit. He just lost the close matches. I don't think he did anything different. He ended up losing to, I believe it was kid from Little Rock in a tight match. But, once again, I think, he had just won all of those super close matches throughout the entire year and then comes to the national tournament and just didn't have a good enough showing. But once again, I think for his season, for what he was doing, making the Big Ten finals at this weight class, just wanted to say that was a little bit surprising to me, just because I thought he could have been a guy that would have gone on to do, a good little run within this tournament. So.
Yeah, for sure. Marco?
Yeah, I mean, Brooks is a class act. He's been a class act since day one. He walked in. He's probably pound for pound the best guy in the country. I'd say I could probably argue with anybody that said somebody was better than him, pound for pound. Hidlay, you got to give the guy credit. He had a great year. He dominated everybody he wrestled. He just can't figure out Brooks. Never got close to really scoring on Brooks. Wasn't able to get his underhook. In fact, Brooks was one getting the underhook all the time, which kind of surprised me and pushing him around the mat. But he did that the last time they wrestled at 84 in the finals, kind of pushed him around the mat, kept him on the edge. So Buchanan, you had talked about him a lot, David, how good you thought he was going to be. I had a question about it, but he proved you right, me wrong. So getting third. I felt bad for Glazier. I think he could have placed. Did not have the best tournament, but had a Cinderella year for the University of Iowa because nobody expected him to do anything this year. And he did nothing but, win for him. So kudos to him. This Little from Little Rock is a phenomenal freshman. He's fun to watch. I think he's going to be really, really good in the future. So that's somebody to keep an eye on.
He just works really hard. I don't know, like, if he's super talented, but like he might be a guy that wins it, but he's probably going to be a guy that places every year from now on.
Yep.
All right. Heavyweight, Mark, I think you're first here, and then we still got to get to the team stuff, and we're running late. But Gary Abbott, keep us on. Don't cut us short this week. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, Kirkfleet. I don't know why everybody, and I was in on the bandwagon. I thought Bastida could win this. Kirkfleet basically just put me in my place saying nobody's beating me, and he was right. He just absolutely dominated. Davidson, what a comeback, what a great tournament he had, making the finals, because I don't think a lot of people expected him to make the finals of the national tournament or even place in the top four. So kudos to him. Bastida, I think, had probably one of the best years of anybody in college, but seemed to lose focus. I don't know if a broken finger, how much that had to do with it, because when he wanted to score, he was able to pick guys up, slam them down, score when he needed to at times. And then, I don't know, it's hard to finish on him when you get a single, but Davidson did it within 2 seconds of getting that leg up. Was able to reach, maybe because he's tall, was able to trip that leg and catch both legs, and that was it. So, yeah.
GT?
Yeah. I didn't see this going the way that it did in a lot of the ways as far as the tournament. I would just probably, to do it quickly, humongous shout out to Nick Feldman from Ohio State.
Yeah.
What a tournament that he had, especially at a weight class that we thought was very chalky, like a 1, 2, 3, 4 type situation between all those guys. I thought also, just in general, I thought Wyatt Hendrickson wrestled extremely well. Going back and getting third. I thought another guy that probably just I thought had just a sneaky good tournament was Slavakowski from Rutgers on his all the way back type situation, being able to then once again beat Bastida in the blood round. Once again, I thought that was just a great little win right there in order to make his way all the way back. And then also congratulations to Campbell University with getting an All-American as well at this weight class. Really, really cool to see. But yeah, I think it was Kirk Fleet looked outstanding this tournament.
Yeah. Mark, 31 here, right? So I'll go here. So I'll just say this. I was the conductor of the Bastida train. Like I thought ever since CKLV, he could win the whole thing. And he, wrestling with broken fingers certainly must be difficult, but obviously it didn't happen. Wyatt Hendrickson is a treasure, and there's already rumors he's going in the portal because I think the armed services are the same kind of thing where you got to get a 5th year somewhere else. GT, perfect call on Feldman. We're going to talk about Ohio State here team-wise. Zach Elam did a really nice job, took 4th, beat Colton Schultz, who he lost to previously, beat Slavakowski. A lot of people are not big fans of his style, but the kid's a winner and an awesome human being, so congratulations to him. So I think that's pretty much it on the brackets. We go to the team scores quickly. So Penn State, 172.5, Cornell 72.5. So Mark, wings, brother. I predicted that they would break the record and win by 100 points. I wish I had said they win by exactly 100 points. That would have been some savagery right there. I think everybody's looked over these results. I think a couple things to keep in mind is how good would Ohio State have been with Sasso? How good would Iowa have been with Brands, Cassiope, and Assad? I think those are super interesting things to consider. I mean, Iowa probably jumps to 2nd. Ohio State might jump to 2nd. I mean, I think Sasso is the favorite at that weight. That bumps them up to 80, 82. Penn State brings back, they could bring back everybody but Brooks and Truax. So Cornell loses. I mean, we'll go through this on another show, but Cornell loses Vito. Michigan loses Griffith and Davison and Lewan and Amin. Iowa State loses David Carr. Iowa loses Franek and Real Woods. Arizona State brings everybody back, boys. I think that's your preseason number 2 right there. So, I think we lost.
Just to allude to whatever next season is as the preview.
Yeah,
there is a tidal wave of things that are going to be happening in the next 3 to 5 months.
Yeah, tidal waves are great. Yeah.
I will reserve the right to be able to tell you what I think when the school starts.
Or January. You just never know.
You never know.
The portal's already cooking. I guess Mark's either computer crashed or he wasn't plugged in, which is fine. So I think there's a couple other things. GT, I think Kansas City killed it for the NCAAs. And I'm a St. Louis guy, but I have a lot of friends in Kansas City. Shout out to Josh Zabel, who's on the sports commission there. Power and Light is set up perfectly for you walk out of the venue, and as long as you go out the right side of the building, you're right there. Tons of great restaurants all over downtown, tons of hotels. Pretty much they got the trolley, you can go from one end to the other. There's a lot of good things there. So, big ups to them. Virginia Tech just posted something on their social media, and I don't want to get it wrong, but I'm not going to go back and scroll it. But I think they've been 11th or better 11 out of the last 12 years. I think Missouri can say that as well. Congratulations to Oklahoma State. Welcome back to the top 10, right? And we were talking to those guys, and they were like, well, Spratley wins, we're 8th. Taking Jamison Russell's to a seed, we're 4th. Every team, from 4 on down that didn't place 1st, 2nd, or 3rd has, that to say. Look at North Carolina State, it tied for 11th at 49.5. How about South Dakota State all the way up there at, there's the tier, right? Because, South Dakota State at 48.5 feels like those 3 teams are kind of in a tier, but then the Oklahoma State tier up to Cornell is like one guy going a different way. If Vito loses, Cornell drops to 68.5 and Oklahoma State jumps to 60. So then they're tied. Michigan is tied for 9th. And there's just so many different scenarios that can happen in this situation. The Nationals always deliver. I got a chance to sit with my folks this weekend, so love my folks. Got a chance to talk wrestling with Ron and Jan, so highlight of my weekend was doing that. Anything else before we sign off, GT?
No, just watch the excitement here in the next coming weeks and months on everything related to wrestling. We got the Olympic trials coming up here in about 3 weeks. So as these guys all transition to the world of freestyle, focus your attention towards the Olympic trials and what's going to be happening now that the collegiate season's over. All sorts of really cool stuff going to be happening for USA Wrestling here in the coming month.
Last chance tournament is, I think, next weekend. So that's going to be a banger because there's only one spot and a bunch of people trying to get into it. So for Mark, GT, I'm David. Thanks for watching and listening. To speak to you all next week.